nature as my teacher. And my first conscious memory, I was 3 years old. I walked to the end of the street and I looked at this beautiful field of wildflowers and grass and butterflies and grasshoppers. And I looked at it and I saw perfection there, you know, a harmony. And I looked down the street at all the little square boxes in a row, and I looked back at the field. And it became evident to me that whatever adults know, it must not be very much, because why would you ignore this perfection and build ugly little boxes all in a row? So that was my first conscious memory. So yeah, as a child, thank God, in the little suburb I grew up in, there's 1 square mile of undisturbed woods at the top of the street. So that's pretty much where I live. And so that was my teacher, seriously.
So welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I am here today with a special guest. I have Randall Harrison here, and I'm just going to do a quick bio, a little bit about what he's been up to and what he's doing. He is a master painter, a builder, alternative builder, holistic landscaper, flat roofer, community builder, and drummer. Sounds like a guy that you want to know, especially when we're starting these new communities. He's an ascended master, an enlightened being, and his interest is to help people navigate the coming calamity through forming ourselves in independent, self-reliant families and villages. He wants to unite the different freedom-fighting organizations to function as one voice and eventually build a living, breathing, sustainable community, a village in the tropics, to give people a living example of how to live on the planet in balance with nature and peace with ourselves. That is just amazing. I can't wait to hear just how you came to be who you are and how this project really started, because I find this topic to be very fascinating. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, just how you kind of got started with becoming Ascended Master and wanting to start all these trades of building. Is this something that you did when you were younger, or you picked it up as time went on?
I would have to state that, you know, this is a giant question, and I'll try to be brief.
We only have an hour, right?
My point of reference goes back long before this lifetime. Spent a lot of time on this planet and other planets, and frequently running revolutions for human freedom. So, you know, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, back in 1957. Excuse me. And I met my first metaphysical teacher when I was 17. And he gave me my first list of 10 books, one of them being Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yoganandaji. So I read those books, we chatted a few times, and I went ahead and stayed in Cleveland for 10 years, practicing my business, working on the beautiful mansions, turn of the century mansions there in Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights. So I got a vast skill set after being trained by my father in painting and then being a restorationist on these beautiful buildings. So I just always needed to escape the city. Couldn't stand living in a big, dirty, cold industrial city. So 31 years ago, I moved to Tucson, Arizona, and realized I came out here via a community, but I realized after 6 months of social study there that it was never ever going to amount to anything, because there weren't rules in place to ensure that it became a community of heightened awareness and consciousness. So I decided I had to start my own community. So I started advertising, and we had a few interested parties, but eventually only one became serious. He and I became land partners. We bought 3 acres and we built a little straw bale village. We had a great crew of alternative people in town at that time. So we'd have 20 people come out on a weekend, help us drag everything up the mountain, put it together. The girls would make rice and salad. I'd bring in pizza and some beer, and we'd all make music together in the evening and just had a great time. So about, I don't know, it wasn't long, maybe 2 months after we moved in, a master picked me up down at Hotel Congress. And we talked, he decided he liked me, and he said he's moving in. So I sat with him for 3 weeks. he totally enlightened me, helped me remember who I am. And I sat with him for 14 days drinking lemon water. Babaji Nagara came into me, and that was really the start of a massive elevation for me. I've since participated in about 7 different peyote meetings with Navajo roadmen, very enlightening as well. I started hanging out with Sri Karunamai, the second most famous saint in India, who used to do tours in America and probably will start again soon. I've had, I got initiated into Kriya Yoga about 8 years ago. Many of the Vedic gods have come into me during that, at that time and since. So that's how I got to be where I am today.
Did you always have a curiosity as a child, like that you felt different, or what made you even get into these modalities, like, or to start, I guess, with the enlightenment?
You know, as a child, I always used nature as my teacher. And my first conscious memory, I was 3 years old. I walked to the end of the street and I looked at this beautiful field of wildflowers and grass and butterflies and grasshoppers. And I looked at it and I saw perfection there, you know, a harmony. And I looked down the street at all the little square boxes in a row, and I looked back at the field. And it became evident to me that whatever adults know, it must not be very much. Because why would you ignore this perfection and build ugly little boxes all in a row? So that was my first conscious memory. So yeah, as a child, thank God, in the little suburb I grew up in, there's a 1 square mile of undisturbed woods at the top of the street. So that's pretty much where I live. And so that was my teacher, seriously.
Wonderful.
That was my teacher.
The best way, right? To be with mother.
Exactly. That was my teacher.
So, okay. So tell me a little bit, obviously you mentioned in the bio here that you want to create these self-reliant villages and families. Tell me a little bit about that.
So after I became enlightened here by my first guru, I decided that I needed complete and absolute freedom from the matrix. And the, you know, is government. The matrix is the banking cartel, the, you know, Morgans and Rockefellers, Rothschilds, who run all the governments of the world, who actually installed the communist revolution of Stalin and paid for that, installed Mao for the Chinese Communist Revolution. And now they call themselves globalists. That's the new communist schlock. So it became evident that I needed to find a way to legally not be part of the system. So what I did was I went to the library. I looked up every type of nonprofit, church, foundation, etc. There were 27 or 28 at the bottom. It said a 508 or other. They didn't tell you what that was, but I did some research. And a 508 is a pure church, a true church, as many churches were previous to 1953, when the government broke the law of our amendment of not Congress not making any laws against religion. They sent in an administrative agency to do that. Okay, but in order to make it legal, they had to leave one out, and a 508 is it. So in America, you have only two avenues of freedom. You have a 508 pure church, or you have a corporation soul, which is what the Vatican is, which is what the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, are. So corporation soul is a kingship, queenship, bishophood, a state within a nation state, or a nation state within a state. So those are your two avenues out of statutory jurisdiction that you can live, build, and be free from the monsters. So that's what I did. So I did that back 20 some years ago. And now, you know, I always felt that I needed to be here for when I'm needed. And now that you see what's occurred in the last 3 years with all the COVID and the wokeism and the communism taking over our institutions and trying to take us over, I figured it's time to go public, show people true leadership, unite those who have a consciousness and an IQ, put us together into working order, because I don't see anybody else doing this, and make something better. a living, breathing example of freedom.
That's
And
great. I think that there are
sustainability.
people trying to do this. And just so you
There are
know,
people trying to do that.
I was saying
No,
that the PMAs, I don't know if you're familiar with the private membership associations, and a lot of people through COVID, I don't know if you've heard of some of the gyms, but one gym locally used the PMA because he was like, I'm not going to be shut down and I have constitutional law. Well, it's sad that we have to go to this level, but we're finally removing ourselves from places that don't serve us. And hopefully we can all have that voice to know that we're doing this. Because right now, all we hear, if you decide to tune in on the, media, it's still the same narrative, if not worse. So we're finding these outlets like this. This is why I did the conscious broadcast. So they know someone like you, Randall. So when they want to build their earth ship homes or something natural from the jungle, which I am totally open to hearing this, and we can create schools and we can create, some barter exchange for food or whatever it is.
exactly.
But it must be grateful that you've been spearheading this for 20 years and now humanity is ready to jump on board.
Yeah, and really my pause in launching publicly was just that I did not see enough soldiers getting off the couch to be interested in running a freedom campaign for humanity. All of a sudden, people are waking up a little bit. So I figure as long as there's soldiers to work with, maybe we can do something.
I think it's all divine timing, right?
Absolutely, it really is. It really
That's
is.
Great. So, so this has been something that you've been doing for you. Like seriously, I see you as like a way shower because there's a lot of people that being in these positions where maybe, oh my gosh, they're seeing that they're working in this matrix and that no longer services them. So we slowly are shifting, whether you were a teacher, now you're stepping away and starting your own school. But how do we connect to each other to then service? Okay, well, where do we get our food sources and how do you see that playing out with these villages?
Well, we need a united voice. And as you said, you've got a organization there that is consciously pulling away and becoming independent. I think kingdomofram.com, our church is a great place to assemble these organizations. And, we're in for a lot of coming calamity because the globalists have realized we really do need to reduce our population, like everybody else has understood we need to reduce our populations if we're not going to go into a planetary bio breakdown. And how we do that is the question I think we should all come to and engage in voluntarily, not through mass murder campaigns of starvation and through not mass murder combinations of bad medicine, et cetera, et cetera. So first of all, that conversation needs to take place. Secondly, we need to take responsibility for ourselves. And I think we need to find people who have wells run on solar so we can have water when things go bad. I think we need to find people who know how to do steel work and can build shelters, and mechanics can keep vehicles running. People who can turn vehicles into running on water, as many people have figured out how to do. Who's going to sew jeans and khaki pants for us? Who's going to take the responsibility for growing food? Okay, we need to basically start affiliating like a family, like a village, wherever we are. And frankly, it really doesn't make sense to live in cold climates because you're always chasing food, water, fuel, and too much going on. If you move into a tropical location, a lot of those things are not quite the worry, which is where you get the Latino attitude of mañana.
Mm-hmm.
You got fish in the ocean. If you got a fresh water coming down out of the mountains, that's good. Now, you got to grow food and, make your clothing and take care of those things. But, the pressures of freezing to death are off the chart.
It's hard. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So where are you, when you mean tropical, do you have some ideas in mind where you would love to get and expand or to get things going?
I scouted Mexico back in 2000, about 6,000 miles of Mexico. And there's a place south of Acapulco that seems to be very, very full of light, big flat area, basically right next to the high mountains. So you can basically pick your latitude, your temperature, plenty of room to grow food. I think that's a star one location. I've investigated that with some spiritual friends, and it seems to be a good locale. South of Tulum also looks like a possible option. And I've got some friends doing some exploratory work in Costa Rica as well. So, wherever things assemble to allow something like this to occur is where we're going to land this.
So that might be a good place that you see things, activity starting like in the near future.
Yeah, as soon as we can raise some funds to buy some acreage, I want to put us on the ground.
Awesome. That sounds like so much fun.
It would be fun.
Yeah. And I see personally myself tapping into my expansive consciousness. I really enjoy like traveling. So if I can soon tap into the ability of time travel quickly, I would love to go to people's places where they're either having retreats or they're having their villages and being a part in some way at each location to spread
Absolutely.
awareness or spread communication together. I see that as my future. I really do.
Right.
And so I'm really excited to see. And then we create more ideas from, hey, we're doing this over at this section here, whatever we call it, where you are. And then we can bring it over some ideas to other places and shared builders. That builder that created that first village could be a builder over here, And so
right.
There's a lot of opportunity for us to come together, and we're doing this really cool event. Maybe I'll have to get you linked up. It's called the Summit of Light, and there's a lot of different practitioners, healers speaking there. And I'd love to maybe get you hooked up if you're interested in having a topic on what you're doing, specifically of building villages and things like that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be very interested. Right when straw bale became legal in Pima County here, this is when we bought our land and we built straw bale for this property. And now we've got additional acreage in this little valley. And I'd like to get funds raised to buy it all, put in a major Kriya temple, put in our own community center, so we can become a major international place to have, masters come and, leaders in sustainable building, et cetera, give talks and basically make this a home for people who need to put us all together.
Yeah. And I think that this is like a consciousness. I don't know if it's one thing that I know in my awakening. So you've had I don't even know if you call it an awakening, but a lot of us are using this term awakening, where I was unaware of pretty much anything. I was just trying to survive, really.
Sure.
And then when I had to go through the dark night of the soul, really, I saw things from a different angle. And then I was no longer a victim. And so we got to see all that we could become. And I think we're just not consciously aware of all these opportunities that are around us. And now you can just live in such flow. And it's really, really beautiful to see the abundance that you put out there. You put out the thought and the idea, and then somebody else comes, and then here we go, and it's already starting to happen. And that's why I love having these conversations. They're so much fun.
Well, what you just shared really says everything. For every death, whether it's your own personal psychological, social death, or the death of a fake society like we live in now, it only results in new life and a birthing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
this is our opportunity to make things a whole lot better and have a whole lot more fun doing it.
Yeah. And it is so much fun. Like, we can really, I think for so long, in my opinion, and again, I just felt like, well, what am I going to do? Because I could never make ends meet, that financial burden was really what I had to learn and overcome, that I already have what I need. It's already provided for. I just didn't see it in that way. And so As soon as I let go and just allowed whatever to happen, and because we want to hold on to things so tightly, and realize that, wow, just letting go, that was so simple. And then more could come in. So sometimes when you hold on to something that no longer services you kind of close the door for the opportunity to come in. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's great. It's great.
What you stated, you no longer chose to be a victim. That's the mindset. Okay. Yeah. Why be a victim of this false monopoly, right?
Right.
So if you cease to be a victim, I think you'll understand the beauty of the document I created, ROM. Okay.
Yeah, you have to send it to me for sure. Love to
I will
share.
do so. ROM encompasses every freedom I could possibly think in the realm of human freedom. So that I've created really basically a declaration of independence for anyone to use if they choose to use it. Jump in. I think you'll find it very useful. You can use it for yourself personally. You can build your own church and use that personally, etc. But yeah, it's a great education and truly a new world of freedom available to you that people don't even know exists because nobody pays attention to history. Nobody pays attention to, lessons learned. So, they say every 20 years, people have to relearn history if they don't study it. And that's really kind of how it is.
Yeah.
The reason we've lost our republic, as Ben Franklin said when asked, well, what do we have, Ben, coming out of the signing of the Constitution of the Republic if you can keep it? Well, 200 years of administrative remedy and wars and depressions and dumbing us down and government takeover of everything. Okay, yeah, we've lost it, and we need to be aware of that, and then consciously work to re-intelligentize ourselves, re-enlighten ourselves, and understand what legal chains enslave us and slip those off.
Yeah, and I was just watching some document about how the tax can work for everybody and that the rich are never really taxed because they know something that most people don't know. And it's a way to not be taxed or something. I mean, I just briefly watched this guy talk on it, and they don't want the average person to know. So they're constantly being slave to the system.
Exactly.
It's crazy. There's so much.
General Electric, for example, they're one of the largest corporations in the world and they never pay tax. Okay?
Right.
Because anytime they have a profit, they put it into more research and development or into a charity or this or that. So,
right.
They're good to go.
Right. They don't. And I even look back at there's so much confusion. Like even now, I don't even know. People don't even know what happened in COVID. Like people are so confused. There's, people were censored. Right. And it's like, how do you even manage to keep what the next thing someone says valid or not? And so it's like this mass confusion. So people are just in fear. And then, when we look back at history, how do you really even look at history and look at COVID to be true for what it is? I guess it would, from my perspective, I know what my truth is. So I look at history like that. We're only told what the history books that they want, that the Rockefellers want you to know, especially in the medical field. And, we only want you to teach this. We want to take all the goodness out of all the natural remedies out. And this is what you're going to teach. And this is how you're going to treat people.
Very well said.
Right?
America has been a defeated population and we've been censored since the Civil War. That was the whole point of it. Civil War was started over 45% tax the North levied on all the imports to the South. And naturally they said, I don't think so. And decided to succeed. And after the first few battles were lost to the South, Lincoln pivoted and decided, we have to make this fight about right, and we'll make it about slavery. So that was the slip of the hand there.
Yeah.
But if you look at an article in a magazine, a newspaper written from 120 years ago, it's written at such an advanced level of English that
I can't read it.
Today what you see is 7th and 8th grade writing, in our all of our texts. And boy, it really shows how we've been dumbed down.
Yeah, definitely. And we need to make a shift. And I hope that with this shift, maybe we'll be more in tune with our own abilities, because I can tell you personally, I can't wait till there's some things that I want to say that can't quite be put into the English language, but it's just like a knowing. And if someone could just connect with me, they'd be like, yes, I know exactly what you're saying. And, they're just downloads that I get sometime in my sleep, but it's like, there's so much more in me that I know I haven't quite tapped into the physical yet. And I think that more of us are getting to that place. I mean, obviously, like I said, with some of your work, that you can be enlightened and connect with that higher version of yourself very quickly, and keeping the practices on the regular, right? That you were telling about with you and I offline. You want to share a little bit about your experience with Kriya Yoga?
Yeah, I will. You sound absolutely brilliant. And
Oh,
again, thank you for your
oh,
service.
thank you.
So yeah, let me share just a few bits of intel with you. First of all, the new Bible has been written for modern times. It's called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, volume 1, 2, and 3. Then there's Friendship with God, Communion with God, and the best one is Tomorrow's God.
Tomorrow's
Okay.
good. Okay.
And this is written by God, same God in the Bible through Moses, Jesus, etc. And he is here, and he just asked Neil about 30 years ago to take dictation and write these books. Neil did, and now we have the new Bible. So, not a word of falsity there. Christ was a Hindu. From 12 to 30, he lived in India, and that's where he achieved his Christhood. So, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yoganandaji. A lot of masters in there. And when people read that, if they have spiritual aptitude, those masters stick with them. So if you're interested in your own enlightenment in this life, I would strongly recommend you hook up with the Kriya Yoga Institute in Homestead, Florida, also Puri, India. And in every major city in the US, there are spring and fall initiations, $180, 7 fruits, 7 flowers you bring to the monks. They answer all your questions. They flip your third eye up, open your crown chakra, energize your other chakras, and show you the little hour of yoga to go with that and meditation. And you are well on your way to being an enlightened being. So there's nothing else that can substitute for that. Okay, we're here to be God conscious, and if we don't raise our antennas into God consciousness, we're lacking. And the Babas and the Gurus teach very specifically: if you're fortunate enough to be born into a human body, don't waste it. Find your master, do your yoga and meditation, and go back to God's spark. Okay, because humans have 400,000 human lifetimes to go through to go back to God's spark, but that's a very long, slow, monotonous, suffering manner to go through existence. So, life is hard, but it doesn't have to be, and you don't have to stay here.
So if you can, so if you find yourself going in that wheel, it could take, if you aren't following the enlightened path, it would take you 400,000 lifetimes. Is that what that is?
400,000 lifetimes are what every human soul has available to slog through.
To achieve enlightenment.
Yes. Wisdom has it that that's just not the route to go.
No,
And I'm wondering, sorry to cut you off. I do quantum healing hypnosis. So I follow it's Dolores Cannon's technique. I don't know if you're familiar. Does that, if you're familiar to this term, does that count for all of the parallel lives that you live at, that intertwine with one another in the multiverse? Or is it just this one incarnation that has to live over and over and over again, not the other ones playing out?
Well, let me answer you like this.
Okay.
Who you are right now is a combination and a culmination of all the beings you've been in the past. Okay. Maybe some of the beings you'll be in the future, because time really doesn't exist once you
It does. It's all
miles off of Earth. Okay. So we live in a very flexible universe. And I would best summate it in this little story about Buddha. So Buddha decided to sit under the Bodhi tree until he became enlightened. And he became enlightened. So one day a couple monks came walking by. And the monks asked Buddha, can we ask you a question? He said, of course, sit down. So the one monk asked, Buddha, how many lifetimes am I going to have to go through before I become enlightened? And Buddha looked up at the tree and he says, I'm sorry, my son, but you're going to have to go through as many lifetimes as there are leaves on this giant tree. So he just shook his head and thought, boy, that's a long journey. The other monk says, Buddha, may I ask you the same question? And he said, yes. And he says, for you, he says, you're going to have to go through 20,000 lifetimes before you become enlightened. And he became so ecstatic that at some point he would become enlightened. He instantly became enlightened, transmuting all of the suffering from those lifetimes because he stepped into enlightenment instantaneously through grace, gratitude, and appreciation.
Yes.
So there you have it.
Yeah. I love it. Right.
Does that answer your quantum question?
It does answer my quantum question. Just like I was over here, because I'm always watching different things, or we're going, and there was like a near-death experience, and this individual was presented with God as he was in his, the transition before he would go into the light. And
Sure.
He asked God a question like, well, can I go back, or do I go forward? And do I have options? And he's like, no one ever really asked that. You don't have to turn around and go back if you don't want to. I think they were always thinking, well, I have to go forward. And for some reason, the guy, obviously, I think he obviously came back, but there was that opportunity where he's like, you can choose wherever you want to go. You asked the right question, and you want to now end this incarnation, and you have that right spirit like that monk did. There you go.
Exactly.
So who knows, right? I love it. I'm just so open to hearing these wonderful things because I get to feel a little bit part of where you've been. And it's beautiful to see how invested you've been all these years, and you never gave up that hope that humanity would be ready one day. And I'm sure the insides must be like, yes, let's do this. Because I'm being newly awakened to this. I'm like, okay, we got to get all the people together now, and I'll be the person at service to make that happen. And
Precisely.
So I'm honored to have met you, and we could meet maybe in the physical. And in these conversations, I get really curious.
There you go.
Gotta look into that more for myself.
Yeah, please do. And you ever have questions, you can always call me and reach me.
Yes, definitely.
What was I going to tell you? Yeah, you can, Tucson's one, a very nice city. And two, you're very welcome to hang out here at my little temple when you come.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the top of the mountain has a really nice camping spot where you can camp, and a little fire circle up there if you just kind of want to be away from it all and overlook the valley.
We're gonna have an RV with us too, so if that is great. Accessible, awesome.
Yeah, you can park it out front here of our property and hang out there too. So yeah, that is available to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, what has brought you here is amazing. It sounds like a beautiful blossoming and personal story. So thank you for doing your work. It's very important.
Thank you.
Quite timely.
I'm really in a good place. I'm very excited. I have a lot of love in my life. I didn't have that love for myself, and I feel like I'm now ready to allow these other things that I wouldn't be able to even address had I had not brought that love back into my life, and being proud for this existence. Like, what an honor to be able to be here and see that we are multidimensional in ourselves anyway, and that we can create so much. There's no limits, and really believing in it and just following with what brings you joy. And it's pretty amazing what I find, like a lot of people that are in that 3D space, they just think that they have to just keep working. And that's just the way that we just gotta nose to the grindstone. And it's like we're missing it. It's like we just gotta like look up and just throw all that stuff away. We really are missing it.
We really are missing it. People forget that we came from the other side. Okay. And the other side contains everything, because everything's there until it comes here. So why ignore the other side? Okay. It doesn't make sense. So a little word on praying. So, Jesus taught 4 major precepts and concepts. And one was appreciation. 2 was gratitude. 3 was love. And 4 was compassion. So when you pray with gratitude and appreciation, love and compassion, that is a recipe for success. Furthermore, it's always good to pray forward rather than backward. You know, we have what's called our dinosaur mind.
Mhm.
And if you're praying, oh, God, please fill my wallet with money, okay, you're implying to the dinosaur brain that you don't have, that you're
The
lacking.
lack.
Right. Praying forward is, oh, thank you, God, for filling my wallet with money. Because then you've created a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and it's obligated to fill it. Okay.
Mhm.
So pray forward.
Yes, that's great
Mhm.
advice. Thank
It is
you.
great. You're welcome.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah. For those who are serious campers, you're savants. You have skill sets. You wish to take charge of your life. You wish to not be a victim. You want to build the new world order that we can all live peacefully under. Call me. You can look me up at kingdomofram.com. That's kingdomofram, RAM.com. My phone number is 520-474-8816. That's 520-474-8816. You can call me. I much prefer speaking to people in person so I can quickly save time and effort by downloading them. And then eventually we'll collect everybody's emails and form a group and put everybody together in a working capacity.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love how it's so simple, you know,
It is simple.
and it is. So,
And I'm doing podcasts every couple of weeks, so you can catch the podcast on kingdomofram.com.
okay.
And, you know, again, people have questions or epiphanies, call me.
Wonderful. And I'll have to keep that in mind as well.
I'd like to be known as the accessible guru.
Yes.
You don't need to talk,
That's your
talk
name.
to the ambassador of Ram or to the secretary, just call me.
Perfect. Well, I want to
All right.
thank you for joining us today, Randall, and sharing your story and what you're doing. And I also want to thank the audience for joining in as well, too. I appreciate you. Please like and subscribe to the Conscious Broadcast, and we will see you next time. Have a wonderful day.
Keep up the
Take care.
light, Mama. Thank you.